Hi, everyone. My name is Shashwat. I'm one of the founders of Provakil, and I want to welcome you all to the Provakil webinar series. Today, we're going to discuss a very important topic, basically around digital transformation for legal teams. So this is a special endeavor by Provakil. We're trying to build a webinar series where we bring on board important voices from the industry, both from law firms and in-house legal teams, to talk about the intersection of law and technology. What are the trends that they are observing in this particular space? What are the key learnings that they have? And what are their views in terms of what is going to change and how things are going to change going forward? We believe there's immense value in bringing this discussion onto online forums where people can learn from what other people are doing in the industry, right? And that is what we're trying to do with this webinar series. We would love to have some of your feedback post this webinar session as to how we can improve and what other topics can we discuss using this forum. A little bit of introduction about Provakil before we get started. So Provakil is an enterprise legal automation platform. We today work with over 200 large companies and law firms across India, and we help them improve and power their legal operations. This includes optimizing and putting in optimizations across their litigation, contracts, intellectual property, and compliances. Today, I have two very special guests who join us today to discuss how they have observed the movement of legal tech across the industry and what their views on this topic are. I want to first introduce Mr. V.R. Shankar. Mr. V.R. Shankar is currently the General Counsel and President at Hindalco Industries at Aditya Birla Group. He's had a long career of 30 years and has worked with PepsiCo, Marico, and Maruti before this. We are also joined with Ms. Pooja Tidke, who's a senior partner at Parinam Law Associates. Pooja, prior to Parinam Law Associates, was also a partner at ALMT Legal. So today, I welcome both Mr. V.R. Shankar and Ms. Pooja Tidke, if you can join us. And the idea was to bring voices both from the in-house community and the law firm community, because when we talk about legal innovation and digital transformation when it comes to legal, it is important for us to hear both sides of the story, right? Both how technology is impacting legal functions across companies and how the legal services industry is adapting to technology and its growth. So I welcome both of you. Thank you so much for joining us today at the webinar.
Thank you, Shashwat. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Shashwat.
Welcome. So a little bit about the topic before we get started. So the idea today is to sort of understand how digital transformation is playing out in the legal industry. We want to go back a little bit in the history of where it started, what kind of things have happened, what are the challenges that the industry sees today with legal tech, right? I mean, it's all not very rosy, right? While there is a lot of promise, there are also a lot of challenges. So we also want the speakers to highlight what are some of the challenges that they've observed, and also then their experience and their views on how should one go about thinking in terms of legal digital transformation. So I'll start with Mr. V.R. Shankar. My first question to you, sir, is what do you think is the path to digital transformation for a legal function? How should a legal function think about digital transformation? What frameworks should they think in? And if somebody new today is planning to implement technology in their function, what sort of mental models can they look at when they think about technology?
Sure. There is in any function or any specialized area, as much as in legal, right? There are things which you do which require human mind, discretion, judgment, analysis, and where you also need to have some amount of gut call, right? That's where the human beings play a role, right? We need to analyze. But everything else can be digitized, quite frankly, right? There is a lot of work we do in-house where we actually do not require physical people or hands and legs to do it. Those can be clearly automated, so that it vacates a lot more time for you to do value-added work, where you are actually applying your mind. You can use a research tool but then finally you'll have to marry it with the facts. What is the reality of your organization? What is that decision going to do to your business? How does it impact negatively, positively? What kind of conversations you're having with the management to advise them on implication of your decision? Those are the human side of it. Rest of it can frankly be digitized, right? And I mean, just a quick minute on it. I mean, I started working in the late 80s from a manual facet typewriter to a cyclostyle. I don't know how many people remember that, to a telex machine. Today we have moved and we scan documents on my mobile phone, right?
Yeah.
So we have known of ease of communication through either PDF files, and all these were unknown. If you look at last 30 years, we have evolved in a big way. We have adopted to technologies in a big way. The question is that how much more value-added time I as a professional wants to invest in making the right decisions and being part of the larger canvas of the problem or the solution, rather than doing stuff which can easily be automated. So my view, it will be an 80-20 by trying.
And so, but Mr. Shankar, I mean, the one thing that we've observed, right? I mean, we meet so many people in the industry today, and there are always challenges when it comes to prioritization, right? I mean, while there are n number of things that one wants to accomplish, one wants to automate, right? But there are always challenges, right? I mean, so in your experience with your experience in the industry so far, right? If somebody with limited resources, right? So today, let's say I'm a general counsel of a small company. I have limited resources at my behest, right? So how can I think about how do I prioritize what to automate first? Where do I invest first? Do you have some thoughts around that?
Yeah. So let's define that 80-20, which I just said, right?
Yeah.
Physical documentation handling, right?
Mm-hmm.
The physical space is going to become precious, and one has seen it in the context of COVID, right? Where physicality was redefined.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm totally physical. All my records, everything is available in my office, and my office is locked out because there is a lockdown. I'm sitting at home. Now I am handicapped. I don't know what to do, right? Now, how do I anticipate a situation like COVID, or I'm traveling somewhere and I need access to my record? So if I just kind of play out what I would need when, and let's put the handicaps in place, right? I need my correspondences to be accessible, and I need my court files to be accessible. I need my transaction documents to be accessible. I need my archives to be accessible. Now, all these are being done by a physical person who is a record keeper, a restorer, or the entire paradigm of having a large library of books, right? Even that has been redone. I have all the barracks available to it digitally. I don't need a physical library other than some specialized commentaries or in a particular book of your choice. Other than that, everything is digitizable, and one should digitize it. Anticipate a situation where you are, cast away and you have no access. How do you get to your? How do you provide that advice where you're dependent on physicality? So what can be digitized? Everything other than your human interface, which is a discretion and a perspective that you're required in the context of the opinion you're giving and the impact of it. That's the mind of the professional. Other than that, everything. How do you prioritize? Go to the lowest common denominator. What is the work I'm doing which does not require physical help, right? So one more thing we have learned during the lockdown phase is also that, do I need an admin, somebody to manage my calendar, somebody to manage my travel? We are used to some bad habits over the years. If you start counting on what can I transform, something which is available in my phone or in my laptop, which I can do on my own, everything should be digitized. So frankly, 100% of my case records is digitized. All my contracts and archives are digitized. I can practically work on my own space without being dependent on access to anything. That's the ideal state where I'm not wasting my time, I'm not wasting anybody's time. I can use my time more productively. If you believe you're doing anything in your day which is impacting or impeding your productivity, that has to go away from your table.
Yeah. And no, so that's really illuminating, right? I mean, so putting a framework around first, I mean, I think putting a framework around what is automatable and what is not, right? Where do you see the high value sort of insights coming in, where you need something to go through, a legal lens, right? Rather than just moving in the process, right? And then once you've identified the places where you can automate, right? Then putting in a framework of what is most important. So I'm sure, right? I mean, there are companies where, let's say, contracting would be a bulk of the work that the legal does, right? So there you first think about how do you automate the contracting process, right? Or if you're in the lending business, maybe disputes is going to be a large bulk of what you spend your time on, right? So maybe
Exactly.
putting a lens and looking at what is occupying your time the most, and then picking up from there.
So I will take a Provakil example, right? So in all my database, my external consuls have access to Provakil of my account of Provakil. They're not couriering bulky documents which land up on my table. Then I don't know what to do. Then I'm going to scan it, upload it. I tell them scan it, put it in. I'll take a look at it. It has saved cost. It has saved time. It is available to me in real time. Right?
Yeah.
Suddenly, I don't need 4 people to Xerox it, courier it, ship it to me. I receive it. Then it takes longer to reach me. Very cumbersome and not cost effective. Today, I get it in a zippy, right? I can just open it in my account. It's all there. And I don't have to be physically anywhere.
Yeah. No, that's really illuminating, right? I mean, and I want to come to Pooja now. I mean, the question when it comes to digital transformation, when it comes to law firms, right? It's not just of prioritizing things basis what you're spending your time on, right? But it is also a question today in terms of competitiveness in the market, right? I mean, because uh, while a lot of the work that in-house functions are doing around technology could be around efficiency, right? But for law firms today, right, and especially, I mean, we have a lot of examples in the US where people are starting new law firms today. And even in India, we have firms coming up where the premise is that we are a tech-enabled firm, right? So technology is a very, very strong competitive factor when it is coming to the legal services business today. So what are your views on that? How do you see that evolving? Do you think it is still technology still has a lot of distance to cover before it can be meaningfully useful for law firms to really invest like other businesses do, right, in technology? What are your views on that, and where do you see it shaping up, Pooja?
Shashwat, I think technology is being pursued very aggressively by law firms today. In India more so. And it's not just to impress upon clients, that we are a technologically empowered firm and we have the ability to service your needs in the best possible way that we can. But also to be able to attract key talent. Today, if you look at lawyers who've just, passed out of law school, looking for places that they can gain their experience from, everyone today looks for a platform that is moving with times. A platform that is technologically enabled, where they don't need to really spend a bulk of their hours doing mundane tasks, and they're able to spend more of their time possibly researching, addressing client queries, legal opinions, etc. With that's more meaningful work for them. So as a platform now, law firms feel that need more today, and they're sort of in this, a lot of law firms are in the race of being able to offer attractive platforms to where young talent aspire to work at. So one of the areas that law firms look at is definitely attracting key talent. Of course, like Mr. Shankar pointed out, cost cutting, making resources records available, at the click of a button. There are so many advantages to a law firm now adopting technology. There are, today, if you look at the average litigant who comes to a law firm for legal advice, he is so much more informed of the law, of his case, of the weaknesses in his case, of the strengths in his case, of the judge that he is before, of the prevailing case law in the country today. And that has sort of challenged law firms and lawyers to sort of up their bar of, the quality of advice that is being given, the quality of services that are now being given to clients. So all in all, I think it's been a win-win for everyone, for the law firm, for the lawyer, for the clients, and resultantly for the country. So yeah, it's definitely something that's being aggressively pursued.
But Pooja, what would be your advice to, I mean, and I'll bring in some of my experience in here as well, right? I mean, so you're absolutely right. I mean, we today, Provakil, we are super excited about this market, because when we look at anything that, in-house function or a law firm today does, we see so much that could benefit from technology, right? I mean, when you look at a law firm, right, from how you're managing your client database, what more utility or what more can you do with your client database, how can you sort of derive more value out of it, right? Further pushing to your work, how can you do research better, right? How can you do billing better? How can you pick up any area of where a law firm spends time, and there is so much that technology can enhance, right? So we are personally extremely excited about this space, right? But one of the key challenges that I have faced, right, personally working with law firms, is that you guys are just very, very busy. And it is so while Mr. Shankar might have the luxury of sort of pulling in people from the IT function and XYZ function who would be running their project and getting it done. But with law firms, the big challenge that we see, right? I mean, given that you guys, it is very difficult for you to take out time, and technology investments require a lot of time as well, right? I mean, you need to really, and again, I would compliment that, right? I mean, with you guys, when we worked, right? I mean, you're one of the rare law firms where we could actually spend time and get things implemented the way you wanted, right? But in a lot of law firms, what we've seen is they've had bad experiences trying to implement technology, because again, frankly, it's both the parties which are at fault, right? I mean, the vendor is trying to do things without too much inputs from the firm's not happy, this is not what we imagine, right? I mean, these challenges crop up everywhere, right? So what is your advice to firms? How can they really because you're right, technology adoption, you pick it and immediately you'll realize the benefit, right? But it's harder done than said, right? I mean, harder said than done, right? So your views on that.
So I think, Shashwat, it's definitely something that needs to be owned by the management. So if the management sees the merit in adopting technology, they need to own the initiative and make sure that it's really being implemented in the right way. So from my experience, I've seen that, say, for example, an HR resource may not necessarily be as enthusiastic or effective in really implementing, say, for example, Provakil within the firm. But the management, when the management takes it up, within law firms, you see the partners themselves are lawyers. The partners themselves have been there, done that, and therefore, very easily see the merit in the advantages of technology. So I would recommend to every firm that the management take it up. Secondly, I'd suggest look to customization. Every law firm has their own culture, their work culture. Every team sort of works in a different way. Processes are different. And therefore, it's important that any technology that a law firm is about to adopt is easily customizable, you know. And that is what makes it easier for lawyers to sort of, you know, gain their comfort with that technology, because that familiarity is there. When the technology caters to the style that you're working with, it becomes much easier to adopt. So I think, yeah, these are the two um, tips that I would give anyone that's working at a law firm. There are so many advantages to it, but yeah, this definitely makes it easier to absorb.
Right. No, that's a fair point, right? I mean, when it is driven from the top, I think generally other people will also assign the importance and the resources to it. So I think, yeah, so those are very valuable points. So I'll come to Mr. Shankar now. Uh, I think you would have a different take on it, but our understanding of, you know, of the legal industry has been that it's been slightly slow in adopting technology compared to, let's say, a finance function or a supply chain or in HR. In fact, now recently, right, legal has been a little slow. In fact, the word we use for it is that generally the reaction is it's reactive, right? I mean, once you get to a point where a process is not manageable manually, only then one gets to thinking about automation and technology adoption, right? How does one go about changing their mindset in terms of being more proactive when it comes to technology, right? How can legal teams and it again, it's a cultural issue also, right? Managements also have not been very when they think of technology, legal automation might not be at the top of their agenda, right? So how do legal teams sell to their management that what are the benefits of technology adoption? How do you become more proactive, right? Any thoughts around that, Mr. Shankar?
You know, it's exactly what Pooja said, right? The generation of lawyers currently, I would say in the last 5 to 10 years, or a 10-year-old lawyer even today, have grown working and learning in the technology space. So the adoption, maybe the context that you're talking about, Shashwat, is true for somebody like me, right, who has seen, as I said, from a manual machine to a handheld. So when I've seen the transition of technology being an enabler, maybe that's it has taken some time to accept the change and go with that advantage of it, upskilling yourself, reskilling yourself. But the last decade or so, they are completely on top of it, right? They are used to a research tool in the college, the medium of teaching, the entire internships that they do. It's all exposing them to technology in a very different way. So as far as lawyers in law firms or lawyers in-house being open to technology, I don't think that has been a challenge, at least not in my experience. I can tell you whether in Hindalco now or in PepsiCo, we have done some very, I will not say path-breaking, it is just an adoption of an existing known technology to our purpose and use, but extremely open and forthcoming in doing that. Okay, so maybe it is true in the past, but not anymore. So coming to how does a management react to technology, quite frankly, what is the expectation from me as an in-house counsel, right? Speed of response, it's true, whether it is, it is an ask of me or somebody is asking Pooja, speed of response, everybody wants the answers yesterday, okay? That's one. So you got to then be able to gear up and make your ecosystem in such a way that you are able to deliver that speed. Now, technology is an enabler in that process, right? Whether it is the research tools you have, access to data or archiving stuff that you want to refer to, all these litigations and issues go for years and years. And how do you kind of archive them in a way that you're able to access it? Now you've seen digital courts across the country, right? We're talking about a law firm ecosystem or an in-house ecosystem, which is a lot more receptive to adoption, right? But if you look at the courts, right, they have adapted to it. Now you have courts, at least Delhi High Court, I've seen there is a complete wing, there is zero paper. The judges have adopted after 30, 35 years of being in practice or in judiciary or in lower judiciary to elevation, they have adapted to technology saying, I don't have papers. They're scrolling the files on the screen, annotating and making a comment. The moment you see an advantage, right? It is the communication of the advantage of a technology. How is it going to free up your physical space, become an enabler? You're not constrained to be in office from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. because everything is here. I can actually come at 7 a.m., go home at 4, take a short break, play with the family, spend time, and again start without losing any continuity there because everything is there in my laptop, right? There are, you're not struggling over the weekend thinking, oh, I got to go back on Monday and go through tons of physical paper. It's not, it's a paradigm. And the moment you show advantage, which is from a client point of view, whether internal client for me or client in Pooja's context, they want efficiency, they want speed of response, right? I can communicate something on an email, they get it, or do a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, connecting face to face. The more you leverage technology, the more comfort the client gets in terms of needing an answer when they need it in that speed and time and efficiency, they are happy to adopt. So it is up to me how much of technology I want to leverage so that I am able to vacate the time to be able to really have a conversation with the clients, understand their paradigm, provide a balanced solution or an answer. If I'm just reeling under paper, I'll have no time. So does the client care if I invest more on technology? I don't think so. They are happy.
Yeah. One interesting point you brought about, Mr. Shankar. I mean, and I'd like to touch upon that a little bit, right? I mean, you talked about courts going digital, right? I mean, and what we are seeing across India is there has been a lot of emphasis on digital services across the board, right? And I think judiciary is also a part of that, right? So two-part question on that. One, how do you see the progress in terms of judicial services and legal services? I mean, right from the perspective of the regulator or the judiciary or the legislative, right? How do you see the progress in terms of digital transformation? Again, coming back to the things that you said, right? I mean, you've seen days where accessing something published by the government was used to be a very, very hard process, right? So how do you see that progress? Do you think, what are your views there, right? I mean, is it slow? Is it happening fast? Second part question on that is, how do you think one, from a legal function point of view, can, use technology to make the interaction with the judiciary and the government services better, right? I mean, as a company, you're filing so many things, right? So are there any inputs that you can give on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. See, one thing I've seen is if you look at anybody who today, for example, if I need to see any notification, any pending bills, what is going on in which state government, they are absolutely available transparently. I just need to build a search engine on top of it, use a Google for a trigger search, I'll get alerts every morning. If you use the currently available resources, search engines, enable them and use them appropriately, you have everything you need. That's one. Secondly, again, unfortunately, COVID continues to be a reference point because it has been a huge transition in the way human race works. I mean, particularly when we look at bureaucracy, the kind of delays, inaccessibility, everything that we've been complaining about all our life. You look at the speed with which the government adopted to this challenge called COVID. Governance had to still happen. They cannot shut down like I could have shut down saying the offices are closed. Suddenly, right? I don't have access to documents, so I'm on a holiday. Government can't do that, right? The speed with which they digitally connected. Now, during the COVID time, I can tell you an example of how challenging it was. Suddenly, the transportation was hit. The logistics were all over the place. Our materials were stuck all over the country at multiple checkpoints because there were lockdowns by states and multiple, directives flying around in the country. Some states have lockdown, some say. How are we in touch with it? It was fantastic, right? I had no problem whatsoever. I had to contact the superintendent of police in a district or a district commissioner somewhere. I was talking to them on Zoom. unthinkable, if a COVID had not shaken us up, right? We do enough advocacy on any change in law happening, or a business enabler request to a government. I've had meetings with the senior most bureaucrats in multiple governments across the country without a problem. They are easily available on a Zoom. They are happy to actually do it rather than a physical meeting. Even today, the lockdowns have gone physical. I go to Delhi a lot for a lot of the work related to government and the company. And sometimes I write a mail to them saying, and they are responsive on emails, which is unthinkable, right? 4, 5, 6 years ago also. Now, I write a mail to them saying, I need to come and discuss with you something. The first pushback they say is, why do you want to come? Let's do it on a Zoom, right? A 10-minute conversation, job done quickly. I know what the government wants me to do. I get clarity on whether my request is going to happen or not happen. I would have traveled all the way to Delhi for a 10-minute meeting and traveled all the way back. Today I can do it. So has the system, the ecosystem around you really geared themselves up to deliver to this challenge? Absolutely. Okay. Now, is it good? Is it enough? No. You still have a lot of tier 2, tier 3 in particular, or I would say tier 4, which are not digitally. They don't even have a ceiling fan. For God's sake, laptop won't work, or a computer won't work. They don't have air conditioning. They don't have ceiling fan. Basic infrastructure is not there. What virtual court are we talking about, right? Now, if you enable it the way it ought to be enabled, we have seen efficiencies. I'm sure Pooja will agree with me that the amount of disposals we have seen even in a 4-5 hour virtual hearing was a lot more faster. At least not the full full length hearings did not happen, but to the extent disposals we have seen were faster, because even as me representing, I did not have a long 1-hour conversation in the court with the judge. The judges were saying, okay, tell me, I got your point. They read it. It's all digitally available to them. But that's very high court, Supreme Court level, right? There are tribunals which are struggling because of connectivity issues. So did we suffer as a result of lack of enablement technology? Absolutely. But there were huge gains, and the speed of adoption by the government was commendable. The speed of adoption of, Justice Chandrachud has been leading this entire digitization exercise in judiciary in a very big way. And from what I read in the domain, he's been doing some phenomenal work, and he's got a vision of really transforming it from a digital point of view. And that's phenomenal. And he's thinking last mile. He's not talking Supreme Court. He's thinking last mile. How do we enable, disposal? How do we create stuff which is available digitally? So there have been huge positives of quick adoption to technology, enablement. All that has been marvelous. More can be done. If you don't lose the speed of one more COVID to happen for me to expedite it, I'm sure we'll get there. I'm quite confident. We all seen the benefit of technology being put to the best use.
Yeah. Pooja, I also want to bring you in on this point, right? I mean, how have you sort of, from a law firm's perspective, how have you observed this, especially with the judiciary, right? I mean, what are the challenges that you faced, and being personally, I mean, within your firm, being a technology adopter, did you see any real benefits coming out of it? I mean, things that other firms struggled with, anything specific that comes to mind, especially during the COVID, transformation phase that we saw with the courts?
Yeah, definitely, Shashwat. So I think, the first instance that comes to mind is there was a day in May of 2020, which was just about 2 months since the lockdown had begun, the national lockdown. And courts very, efficiently turned virtual so that they could sort of continue hearing cases. And we that day appeared before the Chennai High Court, we appeared before the Bombay High Court, and we appeared before the Delhi High Court, all within a span of 2.5 hours. So it was, and that was incredible to see. It was such an an eye opener. It gave us a real sense of what technology can really do to the legal system in India. Today we're fraught with so many systemic issues with the backload of cases and the speed of cases, etc., etc. But technology can really do wonders in making all of that go away. Um, we as law firms today, I don't need to travel to another court. If I have a virtual hearing, I can just attend it from my office. That makes life so much easier for us. It makes things cheaper for the client. They don't need to, retain multiple lawyers in different jurisdictions. So it just becomes so much easier for the litigant. The litigant doesn't need to travel to court for his hearing. He can watch what's happening in his own case just sitting at home and accessing the virtual hearing. So uh, there's a lot to be gained from going virtual, from courts going virtual. There are a lot of advantages to physical hearings as well at the same time, but there are, I think we can work to begin with a hybrid system where courts could agree to virtual hearings at on request. Um, there are certain types of hearings, like let's say your Section 11 applications, where you seek an appointment of an arbitrator. There is such a huge backlog in Section 11 applications. Those could go virtual. Your case management hearings could go virtual. Your hearings before the protho notary and senior master could go virtual. So there's a lot to be done. At the same time, I do feel that there is quite a large gap in the ecosystem. For me today to read my documents all on a screen does get exhausting for the eyes. I think that the industry does need to come up with tools that are more tailored to the legal industry, such as Provakil, also on the hardware side. If there are gadgets that can make life easier for the eyes, it would just encourage more and more people to go closer to technology. I honestly prefer reading the physical brief over the virtual brief. I haven't gotten used to that as yet, and I'm sure there are so many others who are finding it difficult to transition. So I do feel that there is that gap, and there's a lot of scope for the IT industry to sort of fill in that gap to make life easier, so that more and more people become part of the virtual system rather than the physical.
Well, that's a very, very powerful image that you left us with, Pooja. I mean, the 2.5 hour window in which you appeared before 3 high courts. And so I've been in this industry for what, 6-7 years now. I'm an engineer by education, but have been working with lawyers for the last 6-7 years. And frankly, when we look at the problems, right, it's so easy for you to get disheartened looking at the problems in India. When we look at the problems in the judiciary of, how do you get through pendency, and why the judicial process is so tedious, and it's so it really puts a lot of burden on the people involved, right? But the image that you just painted, right? The solutions are around the corner, right? We just need to look deep and hard, right? And great point, right? Ms. Shankar also mentioned, right? We're also very, very inspired by what we hear from the Supreme Court, especially from Justice Chandrachud, right? The view on technology, how seriously they take technology, right? So today I'll share something, right? We are a very small company, right? We are a 4-5-year-old tech startup, right? And legal tech is not as big as e-commerce or other areas of tech startups, right? But we have been actively approached by Niti Aayog a few times to get our views on the roadmap for technology. Just imagine the level of awareness in the government today that a Niti Aayog is scouting for companies like Provakil and getting their views in terms of what they feel that we can do for improving the speed of justice and the access to justice, right? And that is extremely sort of inspiring, right? That really gets us thinking that there's what we're doing is actually meaningful work, right? But it's a really powerful image, right? When I think of it, right, imagining digitization, right? So we'd heard a lot of talk about digital filings, and but just reimagining how courts function, right? And where a mix between virtual and physical can really free up so much time for so many people, right? The litigants, the lawyers, the judges, the court staff, right? I mean, and if as a country we make adequate investments, right? Both the industry as well as the government makes adequate investments in technology, then some of the problems that today we feel are unsolvable, right? I mean, we felt it for a really, very long time, right? Are actually very, very solvable, right? I mean, it's hard, but yeah, I mean, that's a really powerful image, right? No, that was so. I'll come to two predictable questions, and I'll have it in two parts to both of you. Uh, so I mean, you've had a long experience, both working, in a barely with barely any technology tools available. And today, there is a fair amount of activity. There is buzz. A lot of people want to supply technology to lawyers. A lot of lawyers want to adopt technology. But Mr. Shankar, I'll come to you first, right? I mean, uh, uh, so if you were to give a succinct answer to what are the two or three things that have really worked, right? I mean, there is a lot of tech out there, but if there are two or three things that you have to pick and say that this is work, these are the real benefits that you've seen, right? If anything comes to mind there.
I don't think I have a firm answer to that, but because I'm also kind of exploring, evolving, and the best thing about technology is that kind of adapts and evolves every day. And there's something better to do. And one experience that I want to share with Pooja, you should try it, is that I use a lot on the read back options in Microsoft of Office 365 and the PDF versions. So when I have long petitions, documents to read, I just put it on. It's like an audiobook, and I can driving the car, I can just have it played back to me, or sitting. I don't have to read, don't have to strain the eyes, right? So you can try that. So that's one, and that's hugely advantageous, and I've seen it happening. And that's one. And saying AI, for example, Shashwat, I'm quite excited about AI in legal tech space, and I'm working with one of the vendors to convert a NLP bot, which is going to enable my client accessing regular information by talking to the bot. It's like, for want of a better example, like an Alexa, right? And if I have an archive of all the barracks that I typically have, I have a FAQ on, I have archive of all my team members, what kind of questions typically clients want. If I just train the bot once, it's an AI-enabled NLP bot, so it learns on its own as the question banks develops. It gets smarter with every time the question asks. So often you will have clients asking, what do I do if a check is bounced, right? And you are tired answering the same question, right, 10,000 times. So bot will answer it for you. And where the bot is unable to answer it for you, it's going to flash it back to me or my team members. We will put that answer into the bot, train the bot, and bot can keep learning and answering those questions. And I can find answers. I can use it myself to find answers. I can get the bot to do a research on one of the, let's say, I want to find a case law on something. The bot can do it for me. So we have already tested, piloted it, and we are going to put it on a use case experiment. Once that happens, it will not only help me and my team members doing our work, it's going to help the lawyers. It's going to help the clients seek a lot of information without being dependent on me. And those answers will be validated, right? Because we're going to train the bot and we're going to validate the kind of frequency of questions, frequency of answers, variations. That's an analytics that will be available to me to be kind of monitor it in MIS maybe once a week or once a month. So it's going to take away a lot of time doing regular mundane kind of stuff and answering similar questions. What form do I file to appoint a manager under the Factories Act? I don't know how many thousand times I would have answered in my career, right? So I can't say no. I've already answered it once. The guy who's asking is a different guy. So I'll have the bot answer it. So that's one big, right? And contracting, it is an evolving piece of work. You have enough and more tools available in the domain for creating contracts. And they are now AI enabled tools where you can do smart contracting, create a library of your templates, create a library of your clauses. You can actually create a base contract without having to type anything, right? Triggered contracts, and then you can just spend time, focus time on reviewing it and perfecting it. That's where a human interface is required. But if you've created an approved, validated clause library, it can create a contract on a click of a button. So that takes away a lot of time. That every time you start from the scratch, you're doing it manually. It'll at least take 40 to 50% of your time, so that you're able to spend the rest of the time on the document fine-tuning it, because the clauses are vetted and approved by you. You as lawyers, we keep updating those clauses. As experience, we keep changing it. Some of the regular contracts can straight away go out of the template. A lot of time that goes on. Most litigations happen because we are not paying attention to the commercial issues in a contract, and whether it is post-contractual issues, guarantees and warranties and indemnities. We write a contract and move on. We don't pay attention to it. So this tool is going to keep us on our toes by telling us that there are these issues which are falling due for action. So it's got a massive metadata process. You need to do that one-time effort. Thereafter, the system will ensure it is keeping you on your toes. And it's available on all platforms. This NLP bot I spoke to you about, I can actually instruct the bot to create a base contract without having to go to the tool. So is technology evolving? Absolutely is it. And I'm pretty excited with every new phase that comes in. There is more and more time I can vacate for me to do really what I'm expected to do, right? Rather than spending time on all of this. So leveraging technology, changing every day, keeping alert to it, and there are enough and more tools available, enough and more tools. If I don't feel threatened that somebody is going to take away my job, I am happy to do the technology.
So that I can attest to, Mr. Shankar. I mean, as somebody from the legal tech community, I can attest to the fact that nobody is going to take away your job. I don't think so. We are even close to imagining how we would do that, but thanks for that. Thanks for that detailed answer, right? I mean, and I'll come to Pooja with the same question, right? I mean, what are the key areas that you've seen? What are the benefits that you've seen, right, with technology? I mean, the obvious things come to mind, right? But as a law firm, what are some of the key benefits that you've observed? And what is it today that you want to recommend or prescribe to law firms that this at least should be digital, right? If you're running a firm, if this is not digital for you, you're lagging behind, right? I mean, what are some of those things that you would like to point out?
So I think on the top of my list would be research tools, for sure. Not only case law, but also like Mr. Shankar pointed out in the beginning of the webinar, that you now have ebooks available. And if you have a subscription to an ebook platform, you don't have to keep updating your library. Every time there are amendments, we would need to buy new books. Imagine the kind of paper you're wasting, the unnecessary expenditure. So if you just have a few subscriptions to research tools, ebooks, it just allows you to stay updated at a very low cost. And it's also logistically much easier. That's number one. Second, I would say you're recording your time. So your time entries, every law firm needs to keep a track of how the lawyers are spending their time, how sort of cases are being managed, how much time we're spending on which case. That's now an essential part of law firm life. So that definitely needs to be automated. It would be really, really inefficient if you didn't automate that. Another thing that we've seen that makes life much easier is also invoicing. If your invoicing goes online, and the system is able to generate at least the first draft of the invoice for you, it just becomes much easier. A junior lawyer can really sort of work on an invoice, and then there's, for example, Provakil itself has a great invoicing platform through which, we can, without having the need to speak to each other within the firm, an invoice can be finalized and just raised on the client. So that is really something that law firms should look at. Um, a few others would be, I'd say, maintaining a record of cases. So being able to upload your pleadings, now, of course, orders are available on websites, gaining access to cause lists, across tribunals across the country, courts across the country. When you are able to maintain your record in one place, I find that for a law firm, given the life of a case, it's at least about 6 years, maybe 6 to 8 years. And within those 6 to 8 years, law firms do experience attrition. A lawyer may get married, may go on an extended sabbatical or leave, may have a baby, or may just sort of switch and decide to work somewhere else. So when your resources tend to keep changing, if you have an archive that sort of has records available for anyone who comes in and inherits a case, it just makes life easier for the law firm. So the lawyer becomes more efficient because you're not spending your time doing, mundane activities. You're able to really use your billable hours for meaningful work, and that also then in the long run turns out to be economical for the client. I would say also, from a business point of view, as lawyers, we generally tend to ignore the business aspect of running a law firm. Because, once you're faced with a case, we just like give it everything that we've got to make sure that we win and bring the clients the results that they're expecting. So we do tend to sometimes ignore the revenue projections versus cost, etc. So automation does help to help us generate those reports to really see whether, we're working efficiently on cases, and that the way that we're really operating is profitable. Because at the end of the day, the platform, doesn't just have to survive, it also needs to thrive. So, so technology is a great enabler in helping platforms thrive. So yeah, I think these would be the key benefits that technology can sort of bring to a law firm.
No, great. I know we are running a little short on time. I think we overshot, but I had one last question to you guys before we get into the audience questions, right? And I mean, this is something that I have felt is very important, right? Long-term success for any tech interventions will have to be backed by ROI, right? And it is measuring ROI is hard, right? I mean, measuring ROI, setting the context of how do you measure ROI is hard, right? So the question to both of you is, how does one go about evaluating both subjectively and objectively, right? About the ROI of a tech intervention that you're putting in place. Any thoughts around that would be helpful, right? I mean, I'll start with you, Mr. Shankar.
Yeah, it's very simple. I mean, the point I made is that we exist for the pleasure and happiness of the client, right? If they can find an answer more efficiently, more economically somewhere else, then they will go and find that answer, right? So timing is important. So turnaround time, as we measure it, that's absolutely critical. And we do a lot of internal feedbacking process to understand whether the client is happy with the speed of response, quality of response, accuracy of response, right? And one thing that is different from in-house to external is that whatever opinions I give, I need to also ensure it is implemented and I walk it through the last mile. And I'm also accountable for it, for that opinion to be correct, right? I cannot say I advised you, it's up to you to take a call, do it or don't, right? I need to ensure I walk the talk and see it implemented. So the turnaround times and efficiency of my opinion and accuracy of the end result on the ground is what is going to make me relevant.
Yeah.
right? So if I'm going to need to spend a lot more time on where I believe me or my team members are going to add value, I will have to vacate time, on things which can essentially be process dependent rather than people dependent. Right? I invest on processes so the people can do what they need to do. Right? And the point Pooja rightly made is that there is no permanency to people, right? There are attrition, there are multiple reasons there may not be continuity issues. But life doesn't stop, issues don't go away, challenges don't vanish with people. Processes, therefore, has to be so robust that the people input can be really made efficient, time-bound, accurate, and enforceable, practical. So invest on process, ensure your people are doing the right thing, utilizing their time. So if client is happy, you will know it. And when they're not happy, also you will know it.
No, absolutely right. And measuring stuff is important, right? I mean, it's not just about implementing things, but also putting in that thought around, like you talked about, right? I mean, that is a simple thing, right? I mean, not a lot of people. Well, it sounds so commonsensical, but surprisingly, a lot. I mean, the experience has been that very few people actually measure it, right? I mean, and I mean that's a great way to think about it, and do the small, simple things that are obvious to you, and just put that effort into measuring them, right? I mean, and sometimes numbers tell us stories that we've lived through, but we've never realized, right? So I think that's a very strong argument, right? Any thoughts, Pooja, on that point from your end?
Shashwat, I would think, yeah, I like Mr. Shankar put it, efficiency is definitely, it translates into an ROI. So, if, like I said, if lawyers are sort of not spending their time doing things that technology can take care of, we're automatically making them more productive, and therefore, increasing our bottom line, so to speak. Uh, Also, I feel that it improves the quality of your output. Technology does improve the quality of your output because now you have access to so much more information than we had access to before. So the chances of an opinion going wrong are very few now. You can't afford to give a wrong opinion anymore, because you just have access to so much more information because of technology now. So it does definitely improve the quality of your output, and therefore improves client satisfaction, which then again sort of comes back and circles round to an ROI benefit. So yeah, I think these would be two big indicators for me.
Great. I know, I mean, we're very short in time, so I'll just pick up one or two questions that we've been asked by the audience, right? I mean, and I'll pose. So one of the questions that the Rajiv from the audience has asked, right? I mean, how technology will help when vetting the contracts, right? So around contract vetting, what are your thoughts on? I'll start with Mr. Shankar, right? I mean, how can one implement technology for contract vetting?
Yeah, so that's I kind of touched upon it a couple of minutes back, is that there are now tools available, and one of which we are kind of in the process of implementing. Now, where do I add value? I'll use my experience and my team's experience and take the experience available in the market to ensure I'm making a robust clause library. And that's something I need to keep it live with change of law, any judgment pronouncements, which is giving a new interpretation, and I keep evolving that clause library sharply. Okay. Now, very quickly, what is the process? I open a blank file. I can drag drop the clauses. My contract basic construction is done in less than a minute, right? Yeah. Now, once I do that, what am I reviewing those clauses for? What do you review in any contract? If you're writing it fresh, you're adjusting it to the facts, to the business that you're trying to do, what structure you want to address within that. If there are any cross-border issues, any jurisdictional challenges, and what precedents you want to factor into. So if you've already done the homework, two basic issues. One is that you created a robust template and you created a robust clause library, which is kept live to changes of law, whether it is a judge-made law or any amendment to the law, keep it live. A big part of your job is done in the base creation. Then you are able to spend your time on getting the structure right. And if there are any nuances from a taxation point of view or any new structure in your thinking, which requires you to really spend that finite time to get every, all the I's and T's checked, that you can do. As against creating it for, is tech going to help me create a great 70% draft? The answer is yes. I will use my 30% to make it better. So the tool helps you do that. And it has the ability to cross-check from the archive on similar contracts you've done in the past. It will give you the compare checks if you want, right? You've done an identical contract in the past, and this is the deviation you're doing now. So it gives you enough indicators for you to now apply your mind and get to the right format.
Right. No, I think we've overshot time by a little bit, but again, I want to thank both Mr. Shankar and Pooja for taking the time today to talk about the intersection of law and technology and how to think about digital transformation when it comes to legal teams. I also want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and do send in if you have any questions. I know we could not answer everything that you posted, but do send in your questions. We'll try and answer some of them. And keep following Provakil. We will keep coming up with new content in terms of new webinars and discussions around this topic, and a lot of exciting new technology that we're building in this space. We'll keep you posted, right? So do follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter, and we'll keep coming back with more interesting topics to discuss, right? Again, thank you so much everyone for tuning in today, and thanks to Mr. Shankar and Pooja. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Shashwat.